Okay, let's move on to number one. By
I wonder who it's
consensus,
gonna be.
we have Loveland Phoenix,
Woo.
captains by myself, Mischief, with the Fear Turkey, Sergeant Tucker, Brahmatized, Simply Okay, Ghost, and Loki as the seventh. Snuffles had us at number two, and Sweets, Aiden, and myself, we all have us number one. Total number of Laserforce missions is actually number two. That kind of surprised me. We have 18,707 total Laserforce missions, and we're number one. Obviously, with total SM5 missions in Loveland. That margin, by the way, is 8,000 more games in Loveland than the next team, which is Loveland B. So, take it away.
I guess I'll start because I was
Yeah, you're the hater.
I think
Hater.
I think obviously this team is the team to beat. Even though I did put them second, obviously I have faith in my own team that we will win. Obviously, everyone's looking at this team like, all right, this is probably the favorite. This is who, if we can take games off them, we can win this thing. All around, obviously, you guys super solid. I remember my first tournament was in Loveland. I remember playing against you, Josiah, and Slaughtermelon on that A team. I was like, man, these guys are like so good. They're just so much better. You guys were like a big inspiration for me to get better. So thank you for that. And there's not a whole lot of negative things about this team. The one thing I will say, which I alluded to much earlier in this video, was some of the mentality of this team. That some of your players, I'm not going to name names, but a good chunk of them struggle with staying calm and collected, both in game and then after a game happens. For me, another big thing that's a part of that is leading up to duos in Loveland last year. Caleb's like, "Hey, we need a team name, you and I." And I thought, I don't know, let's do a little bit of shit talking. I was like, what about like Loveland So Easy? And when I said that, I meant it as like the arena itself is so easy, because a lot of people are like, man, Loveland's like so hard, it's so difficult. And I was like, nah, it's easy. And everyone, and maybe I like came across wrong, but everyone took that as like, oh,
you did.
Yeah, which is fair. But it was like, oh, Loveland players are like so easy to beat. And a lot of the players took that very personally. I meant it purely as like a joke, just to, a little bit of spice for the tournament. But not only did I hear people like telling me like, oh, like so-and-so is so mad about like your team name, I heard some of your players during the event talk about it and like how upset they were. And so for me, it's like, if like something that small can really get under your skin like that and upset you, I'm concerned about what's going to happen if you guys start, dropping some games. That for me is the biggest question mark. But if you guys can keep a cool, collected head, you guys are going to be ridiculous. It's going to be a pain in the butt. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I got to agree with you on that arena thing. I remember playing in 2018 and everyone's like, this arena is so stupid and impossible to play. And I'm like, are we playing in the same arena?
It was my first tournament, and I felt like I figured it out by the end of it, even though I was still super bad. It's like,
I feel like it came pretty naturally to me, but
yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love this team. I have so much respect for this team. I love these players, except that Mischief guy, because I super love him instead. Yeah, I mean, this is the team to beat. It's the home site team. These guys have been working so hard for this for so long. I've been watching it happen. I remember, and this might be rude, but sucks to suck. I remember in 2017 watching the Loveland team play, and I was like, man, these guys have a lot to work on. And then
We did.
over the years, I've seen you guys work on things, and I think it definitely was a bit of a struggle. Like, your site didn't really have that like storied leadership the way that like I got to play and learn from Death Knight, who had been playing Nats forever, and so you guys came up with and developed like some very interesting play styles and had a lot of kinks that weren't really worked out when I first met you. I think over the years, you guys have worked a lot of that out and have developed very unique styles of play. And I think that that's going to be really hard for a lot of teams to overcome. Is some of the things you guys do might not make sense to them, but you guys are all fairly on the same page. You have an idea of what your game plan is and what your goal is, and you guys can pull off a lot. I On an individual level, a lot of these players are just absolute monsters now. Um, you know, the Fear Turkey is a menace in his home arena, um, and anyone who comes in not expecting that is in for the worst surprise of their life. He's going to destroy some people. I think by all means, this team effectively has the first place slot pretty much on lock. But going back to what I said before about how there's no real infallible teams this tournament, definitely applies here. And I've definitely seen Loveland fall off in tournaments in the past, especially at that Nats level competition. I think that there's been a lot more team tension that scales up based on the intensity of the tournament, and that intensity is maybe the biggest concern I have for this team. Not even just on a mental level, um, but just overall, I feel like the stress of the tournament can cause a lot more mistakes to happen. Um, so even if I'm not concerned about people like throwing games or giving up early or getting tilted, I am still concerned about panic. You know, and that's really the only danger that this team has that's really threatening them to lose that rank one slot. I think. Otherwise, I mean, blow for blow, I think they're beating out pretty much everyone else who's showing up.
Yeah, I think pretty much the undeniable favorites. I mean, just the facts are you guys constantly practice, constantly think about the game. You have a strong B team to play against and run scrims against. You guys have just some of the strict fastest players in the tournament in terms of sprinting and endurance. Um, and I think you guys probably need the least communication out of every team in the arena. A lot of you guys can just naturally play the arena without calling anything, and you know what to do. And so all of those factors together are um, extremely, extremely intimidating. Um, I think, though, like Luke, you're actually the linchpin of this team, in my opinion. You're the person who is the most consistent, is still at the top tier of skill, and like anytime I watch you, anytime anyone watches you, they can learn something about the game, especially in your home arena. You're doing stuff in there that on a consistent level every single game that no one else in the arena is pulling off as cleanly. You're probably like the cleanest there. And so if the team is able to not overplay their hand and not have the mental breakdowns, you're the player, in my opinion, that will never have the out of game struggles, in game struggles. And so if you had 6 Lukes, you're winning the tournament. So I'm hoping that the team will be able to kind of like lean on you if there's any of these struggles that the other two guys have mentioned, to kind of figure out some of these problems. And then you have people like the Fear Turkey, or even I think Jared has been stepping up recently, or watching at the Mega Members Night, Bromley was kicking butt. Like all of these players are at the top of their game. I think everyone is peaking right now, um, and Calkins is so fast. Like there's so many intimidating factors. I'm sure we can go on and on about it. My main critique, kind of building off of what these guys are, is I think because of how good you guys are, there's a lot of pride there, and accepting critique can be hard from a player that is less skilled than you, and not taking blame and being able to blame other people because you might have made a minor mistake and someone else made a bigger mistake. So you could blame the whole game on the bigger mistake rather than trying to see what you individually messed up. And I think there are a couple players in this team that do that quite often. And maybe that's just outwardly, and inwardly they don't, and maybe they accept critique better from their own peers rather than from the outside. But if you guys are able to critique each other and work together and adapt to whatever new playstyles are brought in from all the traveling teams, I don't think this team could be beaten. So there's just a few cracks that everyone's going to be aiming for. You guys have to guard those, and we'll see how it goes.
Luke is the person I'm most excited to play against.
Agreed.
I want to shoot Luke so much.
I wish I could play with you. You're fun to play with.
That would be nice.
Thank you all for the kind words and the honest warnings, things that we need to look out for. I love this team. These guys are my actual brothers. One of the things I did early on was I didn't read the whole thing. I really wish I did and still can, but I read part of a book called Mentor Leadership by Tony Dungy. He coached the Indianapolis Colts during a year they won the Super Bowl. They had a really good run for a while. A man I just kind of respect, and introduced the concept to me that he wasn't about trying to necessarily build the strongest team and win the tournament. He was trying to turn every person on his team into a better man. We have taken a lot of intentionality to hang out outside of tag and bond as friends, so that when times come like that where we're panicking or we're angry at each other, we actually care about each other so much that we'll naturally be able to overcome that easier. The way that families can get angry and stay bonded, stay connected. We have overcome so much struggle with taking this too seriously, too life or death, ruining the game for ourselves because we're like, this is our one shot. If we don't win, it's you can think of all kinds of catastrophic instances, but I mean, we've really worked on that. Like if you can overcome the stakes and have fun when you're playing, you're much less likely to freak out, yell, hit a wall, do something stupid in a game if the point is that you're playing with your brothers and you love the game, not like with the stakes hanging over you, which I'll admit, they've been scary. Like, hey, we have my plus for our team, we have an unfair amount of practice. That's the number one headline. If you take us in a neutral arena that we've never played at before, the rankings change, but we do get an unfair home field advantage. And we are unashamedly taking drastic use of that. If we don't win this tournament, the team that does beat us has proven that they are legit the best players in the United States, period. Coming into an away arena against our team, it will take a lot to figure us out and do that, and you'll have my respect. I mean, I already respect the teams coming in. We're shooting for first. Yeah, it's kind of now or never for a lot of us. Being not that we're all gonna like stop playing, period, but I think different life events are gonna slowly carry some of us away from competing constantly. So we do see this team as a team that may never really like get back together in the future. We wanna take advantage of that. A couple other.
Yeah.
So we have an unfair amount of practice. We're hungry, and that's a factor. Not every team at this tournament is super hungry. And one thing we've done, I just want to call it out, that over the last 3 years or so, basically ever since like COVID, we lost like most of our A team. We have been really intentional at trying to get Simply Okay, Brahmatized, and Ghost to play in tournaments and leave the home site, because we knew that they were going to be players that would very likely be on our A team in the future. And we were trying to bide our time for this tournament. That's why we didn't do a full A team roster in West Coast 22. We're like, I'd rather Jarrett play Commander on the Bakery. I'd rather like me and John and Bromley have to really carry the load and learn without Josiah here and force ourselves to become better so that in the future we can have the advantages we need.
Yeah.
I see two main weaknesses. Aiden, you kind of alluded to it. We never had like a dedicated mentor figure. Eve's Thunder was kind of like the first one to come out and show us SM5. In Syracuse 2016, he was instrumental in teaching us the basics. And Tragedy taught me some things in 2017. I can name a bunch of people. We had to kind of like pick from all these people and be our own mentors. Trying to give that to our B team now. But we still don't have that. At the end of the day, there are still things I'm thinking that Thunder, Death Knight, and Than have in their back pocket we just haven't seen yet, you know? And I really don't take stock in this one, but the truth is that we've fallen short of projections pretty much every tournament we've been to. I am very wary of hubris. I really try to snuff it out of my teammates. The idea that, oh, we're gonna win. No, you're not. You take every team seriously and don't take anything for granted. So, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, that's great. When I go to Nats, what I'm looking for, obviously winning is great. Obviously, I go into every Nats with the intention to win. Every single one. It doesn't matter how weak my team is. But what I'm looking for is really, really good, strong, competitive games. And a lot of times that means rising to the occasion, but it also means treating every other team as an equal. And I think that that's a very important thing for your mentality. I think that if that is your goal, and I think if you're approaching every game seriously with the intent to rise to the occasion and treat every team like a challenge, I think that that is where you will draw out your best gameplay. I think that mentality is very important. I've seen players who are phenomenal players play very poorly because they didn't have the right mentality going into the tournament. They weren't taking certain teams seriously. They weren't trying to rise up to the occasion. They were just trying to play their game. And so I've seen Loveland play so seriously. I've seen Loveland try and really step up consistently. And I'm really hoping to see that mentality from them this year. Definitely, I've mostly seen them in members nights recently because I keep going out there. And I've seen some play where I'm like, that's a little disappointing. But at the end of the day, that's members night. And, we keep talking about how it's a different environment than Nats. And so I really hope to see a lot of seriousness coming out of all those players at Nats. And I really think that if you guys come out and you guys really want it, and every player on that team is taking every other team seriously and doing their best to rise up to the occasion and fulfill the roles that the team needs of them, I think that this is going to be one of the best US teams ever seen, and in a home field, borderline unbeatable.
So last year, before the Auckland Nats, Than said on the Resupply podcast that Josiah has a bunch of mental struggles and he's going to freak out and everything's going to go terrible because of that. And then that didn't happen at all in the tournament, and Josiah kicked butt. And I feel like we're falling a bit into the Than train of we're critiquing the mental of this team so much, and then we're going to go into this tournament and everyone's going to be polished, because at this last Mega Members Night, a lot of my concerns I had for this team were snuffed out, which is unfortunate because that's what I was hoping to exploit, and they weren't there to exploit. A lot of the players were really chill. They were having a good time. They were coming out of the game, and if they were a little bit upset, they figured it out. They got over it. No one's flaming. So all the stuff that you're talking about, Luke, that you guys have worked on and focused on, I think it's like, at least from an outside perspective, extremely noticeable about how the team has improved in that aspect. So we may have egg on our face in a month or so.
Yeah. Well, this is, the point here is honesty and transparency, right? I'm not saying you guys suck, your mental sucks. I'm saying that these would be the leading concerns, and I am very hopeful that you guys are addressing them, and I have a lot of faith in your ability to do so. And if you didn't, then egg on your face. But I'm willing to take the egg for the greater good. At the end of the day, I want all of these teams to thrive. I want all the players showing up to improve, and I want a more difficult tournament year after year. I want everyone to keep rising to the occasion and to see everything improve. So, putting it all out there, everyone showing up has strengths. It's a matter of what you can play into and how well you can adapt and how well you can adjust to your weaknesses. So, I'm very excited to see everyone. I think it's going to be a great tournament.
To wrap this
We'll
up,
spotlight Joe for a second.
Oh, spotlight Joe. Yes, please.
Oh, sorry.
He deserves a spotlight.
Yeah, just a quick note on Joe. I feel like we haven't talked about him much at all, but he's a player that I think I undervalue significantly in the game because I wouldn't say he's a very flashy player in the game. He's not as fast as Calkins is or making the insane dips that Josiah is, but I think his consistency really raises this team's level significantly. He's in the right space at the right time. He's trying to do his best he can with all the call outs and the communications, keeping everyone's head in the right place in the game. I think he's a really like consistent factor that like what do you call it, the glue man. He's keeping the team in the moment in the game, and so I want to give him a little shout out there.
Building on that, actually, Joe has a skill that I think really is only maybe matched by one other person at this tournament, and that's timing. There's almost no other ammos that I'm more annoyed playing against than Joe in that arena. He knows how to play the ramps, and he knows when to pressure the midfield. He knows when to switch fully to resupply focus. He knows when he needs to do what he needs to do. And the only other player showing up that I've really like felt that same way about is Meds. I feel like Meds is really good at that time. He's really good at knowing when he can pop out, when he can take shots, when he needs to reset the heavy, when he needs to support the field, which is a great value that both of them provide. But for Joe, for Sergeant Tucker, it's elevated a little more with his level of arena experience because not only does he know when he can do these things, he knows where the best place to do them from is. So watching him pivot to the ramp on ammo at certain key times when he knows that his team has big box and has Baja, and he knows that he has the wiggle room to push out more, and when he knows to get back into fortress, when he knows to dip into closet versus into trench, when to start getting ready for these backtracks, knowing how to move around the arena combined with his sense of timing makes him very formidable in resupply in ways that you don't normally anticipate a resupply to be. And almost entirely due to that, it raises an additional threat from this team that you aren't going to feel from most of the other teams. Having to be concerned about the team in front of you and their resupply creates a lot of pressure, and it can be very difficult if you aren't getting the same kind of support.